since we started our channel, we have done a skeleton update for every set because skeletons are neat and we like them. However, despite the fact that there are a few cards with some skeletons in the art in Bloomburrow, there are no skeleton creatures.
Very sad.
So instead, we're going to do Frogtown Follies! And this is our friend, Max.
Hi.
You're an enormous fan of frogs, right?
What gave you that idea?
This.
Yes.
Okay. And also, you are our only friend, to my knowledge, who has a frog-based
I
commander
believe
deck.
so, which you had prior to Bloomburrow.
Yes.
Yes. I made it back in Crimson Vow, which is the second set that released after I started playing.
Yeah.
So it's been a while.
It's fair. But I know you were invested enough in the fate of frogs to make the observation right before Bloomburrow preview started that they'd better give us a Sultai frog commander. And we got one!
And I'm so happy about it.
Yeah?
I'm ecstatic. Not only that it now exists, but now that the most important part is that there's a home for all of the best frogs ever printed.
Yeah.
And it's not helmed by someone that you're just using as an excuse to play a Sultai frog deck. No, it's a Sultai frog.
Yes.
Commanding Sultai frogs.
I have had this problem with skeletons. I get what you're saying. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's neat. There's a Glarb, of course, but there are two other frog. It looks like they've taken blue-green as the basis for frogs and made it so you can add any color to those. We have Glarb and
Helga?
yeah, Skittish Seer.
She is also the one on the box art, like front and center. I believe.
Hey, yeah,
that's
she
the
is.
same
Yeah,
one.
yeah, she's. I think she's the first character you meet in the story. It starts following her, and she's this poor little misunderstood frog augur, trying to augur things, and no one believes that she can do it. And then it's oh yeah, right here. The what's the word for this?
The buy box promo?
No, not Mardu.
Teamer.
Tamer. The Teamer frog is Flubs the Fool.
People love Flubs.
Do they?
I haven't seen him in the wild yet, but I've heard people talking about him so much.
Is he one of the face commanders?
No. Sadly, tragically, ashamedly, there are no frog precons. And that is a crime.
Yes.
But I've heard people gushing about how much they just love Flubs as a card in general. And I think it's weird that he's Teamer, but I do see what you were talking about earlier. They've made what's the word? Simic. They've made Simic frogs paired with every other color for a triple color commander, and given people the options to do with that what they will. So you can use frogs in any color pairing.
Yeah.
But objectively, Glarb is the best frog for frog commanders.
Yeah, it does seem that like the main two colors they've made frogs in general have been blue and green, Simic, but
And Golgari.
well, yeah, I would get there's who is it? The
Gitrog monster?
yeah, the Gitrog monster. Just get rid of this legendary restriction here so we can see all the frogs ever.
Every frog.
Every frog. So yeah, there are a few black ones also. I wouldn't count the two from Baldur's Gate because that's kind of a different mythos, right? But,
It's really stretching the definition of the word frog.
yeah, but Yargle.
Yargle being
famous
is
frog.
Yargle's
the
a
big
canonical frog. Urg. And which is familiar. The one I liked was from Strixhaven.
the which is familiar.
No, it's Unwilling Subject or something like that.
Oh, I think you just passed it
Okay.
because I just saw him. Unwilling
yeah.
ingredient.
Unwilling Ingredient. He's just got an attitude.
Yeah.
Look at that face.
I'm also personally a big fan of the Crocid Amphibinaut from the most recent
Unset?
Yeah.
Infinity?
Because just like if you zoom in on his face, he's down there in the corner. But like, just look at him.
He's just so prepared for anything.
He is. That's
Like he's
a
so,
frog guest.
He's so silly.
I'd forgotten Guest is just a general creature
Yeah.
type in that set.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure is.
Okay. So, what I'm curious then, Max, is are there particular frogs you really wanted to get into the frog deck? What were you wanting to be unlocked? Because there aren't that many.
Honestly, it was mainly because the first frog deck was Grolnok the Omnivore, which is just Simic, which is just blue and green. And in general, at the time, there were barely enough frogs to fill the amount of creatures I needed for that deck.
Oh, yeah.
And even then, I do think when I built it, I had to include a couple changelings because I was so creature starved at the time. So really, having the addition of Sultai in there, gave me the options for all the Gitrog and Yargle possibilities that are now available to me, which are all massive heavy-hitting cards.
Yeah.
Because Yargle's just big and stupid, and that's my game plan when I play frogs, because the frogs are big and stupid. And I love that for them, because that's what I try to embody. But also the big thing is, I feel the other vibe that big dumb frogs give off is hungry and just eating without really caring what it is that they're eating.
Okay. Very Pac-Man frog. If
Yes.
we're gonna use an analogy to the real world.
100%.
Okay.
But also, if you look into the eyes of any frog that isn't like sapient, like Jade Avenger, if you scroll up one row, that's a you could call that a person. In whatever world this frog is being depicted, that's not just a frog. That's a samurai.
Yeah.
But
It's a job.
Yes, and his job is fight with sword. Every other frog that you look into the eyes of on any other piece of magic is completely head empty. And that's
The poison dart frog is so cutely empty, but you're right.
Yeah,
You're right.
there's no thoughts.
Yeah. And the thing is that with Sultai, big, dumb, and hungry is a much more feasible game plan. Because in Sultai, there's a lot more sack outlets than Simic.
Sure.
And you can use, I don't want to say eat, but you could feasibly eat up a lot more frogs for value.
Oh, you should say that.
You
yeah.
should say it. I think you
I like
should.
that. Get the flavor
Yes.
in there.
Yeah.
Yes, whatever that value may be. I mean, the greatest example being Gitrog Ravenous Ride, which I also have a commander deck of.
Yeah, you do.
Yes. All he does is eat and give you value.
All that value.
Agreed.
Whatever you saddle him with, he will eat, and then you just get to reap the benefits of that.
Yeah.
And in Simic, that's a lot harder to do. The only thing that comes to mind is kind of like some like mono green enchantments that are like sack outlets, like
Greater Good, yeah.
Greater Good, stuff like that.
Okay.
But once you introduce black into that without taking blue or green away, the combination is just a lot. There's so many more possibilities now. So like you have stuff like not just Greater Good, but also just every decent black sack outlet ever. I'm forgetting the name, but it's like one in a black where you sacrifice a creature or artifact and then you make a treasure token and draw 2 cards.
Oh, Deadly
Dispute?
Yeah.
Yeah. Stuff like that.
True.
And like there's so many more possibilities to not just have a bunch of big dumb hungry frogs, but now have a bunch of big dumb hungry frogs that are a threat. And especially with Glarb, the thing that I love is how he wants you to cast big spells. And there's a surprising amount of big frog spells that actually are the heavy hitters. Like there's Galloping Lizrog that does a lot. I think every copy of the Gitrog and Yargle is at least 4 CMC.
Yeah.
There's the Omnibian, and I think it's called the Merkfiend Liege.
Oh yeah, I don't think he's not typed as a frog, but he benefits blue and green creatures.
Yes, and he's also definitely a
Visually.
frog.
Like visually very frog-like.
Visually,
I love that.
that
thing.
yes,
Have you looked at the art for it very closely?
yes,
Good.
and I've
Oh, wow,
included
yeah.
it. Like you look at that and you tell me what animal that is. That a frog?
Okay, but we need to zoom in and like look at the hands that are poking out of the water.
Do we?
Yeah,
I mean,
we need to zoom in on it.
Golnock's got hands poking out of his mouth
No, but see, he's drowning somebody.
Oh, actively, he's holding them down right now.
Yes.
because
Well, there's more than two hands, so he's habitually been doing this. This took a turn. I thought we were going to be in a lighter place because this is a Bloomburrow episode. It's not about skeletons, but no.
Here's the thing.
You found the way back.
I sure did.
Here's the thing about frogs.
Mm-hmm.
They don't care. They just want to eat. And they don't care what they're eating.
Mm-hmm.
Helga seems to care a lot. Flubs doesn't care in a different way.
Yeah.
And for both of them, that's great. Glarb doesn't care about who he's stomping over.
That is very much his
He's
personality,
just
yes.
He's just going to do it.
That's what the art says, and that's what happens in the story.
Exactly.
Yeah, nice.
And when he is at the helm of your commander deck, you can guarantee he's going to do it with frogs.
So I came into this episode thinking we were going to have a possibly, how do we solve the problem as which is the best frog commander, but we don't have that problem. It's
Apparently
Glarb.
not.
Here's the thing. Helga and Flubs are both great.
Yeah.
They are good frog commanders in a different way that Glarb is a good frog commander.
Yeah.
They are good commanders that also happen to be frogs.
Yeah, I see that.
Glarb is a good commander for frogs and is a frog.
Yeah.
Because the big thing about running a frog typal deck is that a lot of them, just by the virtue of not really having many actual frogs to play around with up until recently, cost a lot and don't give you much return on investment for how much you're spending on them. Because that's just how a lot of earlier cards were printed. Like, I think back before they even got typed as frog, a lot of them were just beasts. And it's like hulking a Nurid or like stuff like that, where they're just big and cost a lot, but they're like maybe just vanilla. Maybe they can block creatures with reach. It wasn't until later on that like the typal started getting like fleshed out more. But like there are still a lot of big frogs that are cool,
Beast, yeah.
but don't give you much. And like with Glarb at the helm, that kind of like takes away, if you wanted to include those frogs in your deck, that would take away like some of the stress of having to include like kind of subpar cards just to fill out the type that you're going for. I of course am speaking as someone that despises using changelings.
Yes!
Because I feel like that's the easy way out.
Yes, I agree.
And
I
that's
agree.
just boring.
Yeah.
Despite how useful they might be, it's like you made a vanilla sundae, but forgot to put any vanilla bean in the ice cream.
I agree with you, but sometimes I have to use Realm Walker because it's so good.
Yeah,
This is
that
true.
one is really good.
He was in the frog deck at first, and then I started to care about frogs more.
Yeah, I just give it a pass because card advantage is neat. But
True.
like, I am generally on the same page. But despite looking at this list of frogs earlier today in preparation for this video, I did not put together that there are so many big casting cost frogs. I just think of them as small because I mostly play limited, and the things I've
Yeah.
seen most recently are like the Splash Lash or whatever it was that was in Thunder Junction. It's a 2-drop, and
Yeah, or like we played with the little poison dart frog a lot.
yeah,
in,
so that's what we've seen a lot of
Caverns.
recently. But yeah, there are a lot of big ones, and there is just so much text on cards now. I know it's a common complaint, but I had not processed that Glarb had that value 4 or greater in his text box.
Yeah, I think I was hung up on looking at the top card of your library at any
Yeah.
time and the lands, but I wasn't. I just kind of skipped that somehow.
I was real hyped about the surveil part, but I was attuned to the fact that Helga has that mana 4 or greater. So 2 of the 3 commanders they provided here are attuned to that mana value 4 or greater thing. That's
And Flubs is just doing his own thing.
Yeah, I do want
Yeah.
to point out before we get too far beyond that I personally of these three, Flubs is my favorite just for the art because I'm very into tarot, and this is a blatant reference to the Fool.
100%.
Which I just love that they did that. I wish it wasn't the buy a box promo because I would have liked to.
Oh, is that what
I
this
didn't buy a
is?
box.
Yeah.
So
It is. I did not understand that.
I didn't get one, but maybe I can pick one up later
Oh,
at
I'm
some
sure.
point.
Here's the heartbreaking thing. I did buy a box today. This is that box. They didn't give me a buy a box promo.
Did you ask?
We don't have to focus on that.
Okay.
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 They will be hearing from me though.
Yeah. All right. Now let's consider what's the best art, but when the ones that do have alternate arts, Glarb or Glarb.
I think they're both very different vibes, and I love both of them.
Yeah.
I think depending on what you're trying to do with the deck should decide which version you use if you have that privilege. If not, you just use the copy you got. I feel like one is more... So the alt art is definitely showing Glarb's age a bit more. Okay, a bit more. A lot more.
This looks like an old man. It doesn't look like a frog. I mean, kind of does, but like...
Correct.
He looks like a Jim Henson Muppet.
Yeah, but like one who might be under a particular influence
Possibly.
and is kind of happy.
Maybe a little bit.
Yeah.
What I get from it is it's the kind of aged wisdom that doesn't lean itself towards a kind, nurturing, and helpful role, more a role that's like stuck in their ways.
This is the propaganda poster of Glarb that's plastered all over Fountainport.
Correct. 100%.
This is their dear leader image. He's just a little guy.
He's just a guy.
Yeah.
Look at him.
Whereas
Yeah.
the regular art is true Glarb.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
The one feels like the alt art feels like how he's trying to portray himself to the masses to sway them.
It's definitely the propaganda poster, 100%.
And the regular art is what the ne'er-do-wells that he brings into his throne room see right before they get executed.
All right.
He's far more domineering in the normal art because he looks like he just exudes a powerful presence.
Yeah, he looks very unbothered.
Yes, I think that's the best word for it. This isn't the dog typal video. Your presence is welcome either way.
Every video is a dog typal video.
That's fair.
But the other thing I'm noticing is the alt art. I don't know what these are behind his head, but they look like little hairs, like old man gray hairs.
Yeah.
Of a Muppet. So yeah.
Yeah.
He's like one of the two Muppets who sits up in the box.
Yeah,
and,
the critics.
Statler and Waldorf, yeah.
I can see that.
Okay, anyway, so my vote easily regular Glarb.
Yeah.
Glarb, regular Glarb?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. It's important we make a decision.
It is. It's very
The people
important.
need this.
They do.
Agreed.
Helga, though, also has an alt art, which is similarly such a different vibe.
Yeah. Here's and this is gonna sound weird.
Mm-hmm.
In the regular art of Helga, I can't get over the fact that it just looks like a regular frog. And that may just be credit to the artist doing a lot of reference work, trying to figure out how to draw frogs correctly and anatomically correct. But it looks like just a frog looking up at a fly that it wants to eat. Whereas the alt art looks like a genuine, like, future seeing sage.
Oh, you're saying something different there than I am. And now I see what you're saying. To me, this looks like self-doubt everywhere.
Yeah. This
and
looks like anxiety.
yes, and that's how Helga's character starts when we first meet her at the
Yeah.
very beginning of the story. She's full of doubt and everything, and this is like how she sees herself then. And by the end of the story, she's found her place.
Yeah,
and
this
she
one looks a lot more confident.
she's a little
I do see that.
But there's something about the eyes. It's almost like a perspective shift. The way you look at those eyes, I can also see the actually like deeply knowing I am peering into the unknown.
The vibe I get from the alt art is more like magical soothsayer, doomsayer. Like someone that has seen the apocalypse and is like, what do I do with this now?
I don't want this. Will you take this?
Correct. I am also just noticing that she's got her head propped up in one of her hands. Like, oh, what am I to do with this knowledge?
Right.
I didn't notice that until just now. I thought her left hand was holding up her staff.
Oh yeah, and she's like water bending over here real passively with the other hand. This has layers.
She's also kind of pondering the orb in her
Yes,
staff.
which gives it points.
What's going on in this?
I do also find it interesting. I was going to say weird, but I don't know if it's that weird. I find it interesting. The alt art has defined pupils in her eyes.
Yeah.
Whereas the normal art is just kind of...
Do frogs have pupils?
That's the question.
No, they do.
Yeah. Some of them... Oh, no. I was going to say some of them have horizontal ones, but I think that's just hypnotoad.
Yeah, it's just... they can have horizontal,
Oh, yeah.
but it depends on...
Internet says yes. Oh, yeah, I can...
Yeah.
I've seen this a million.
Usually that kind of thing has to do with whether they're nocturnal or diurnal.
Got it. But...
Oh, all right.
Her pupils are completely different between the two arts.
Yeah.
One of them's just like a defined slit, and the other one's the whole eye.
Yeah.
And like I do think that gives credence to what you were saying earlier of like it could be that these two pieces of art depict her at the beginning and the end of the story. Because this one's hyper focused on what she is currently seeing and foretelling, and the other one's just kind of living and being in the vibe.
Yeah.
This one feels a lot more carefree, like most frogs are. Given, though, that most frogs are carefree because they can't care. They're physically incapable of it.
But these are animal folk frogs.
Yeah.
Right.
She has thoughts and dreams.
Yeah.
Good for her.
Very tepid ones. No, not tepid. Tentative. Hesitant. Anyway. Last thing that I thought we would do is just look through the new frogs and note which ones are neat. Let's just go through the Bloomburrow frogs. And we don't have to talk about every single one, but we just got them up here and
I mean, we're going to talk about Clement.
Are we?
Because
I guess we are.
Partially, and this is a failure on my part, this is the cross that I will always bear. I didn't know they existed until just now.
Oh,
okay.
Oh my god. It's Leapfrog.
Leapfrog?
It's Leapfrog the mechanic. That's what it is.
I know we just saw Leapfrog somewhere
No,
else.
not that. Like, its mechanic is a game of Leapfrog.
Okay.
Whenever it or another creature you control enters, return another one you control with lesser mana value to its owner's hand. Its mechanic is playing Leapfrog with the other creatures on your field.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
When it or another frog comes down, another one goes up.
Yeah. I mean, this is the one that's like really there for the limited archetype. And it lets you then build a commander deck or something else around that same limited archetype of just rebuying ETBs or
and
E's.
They're just E's now.
Yeah, rebuying E's.
That sounds
That's-
weird.
that is
I don't
weird.
Like that. I'm just gonna be outdated and call it ETBs.
Yeah.
I could get pedantic and ask, what if you're not defining what it's entering? How do we know if it's entering the battlefield or the graveyard, or any other zone that may or may not exist? But that's a different video that I don't have the brain power for.
Time for semantics, but not right now.
Yeah.
Not right now.
I have not looked at this art larger than on card size until now, and this is really expressive and funny when it's zoomed in a bit.
Really funny.
I do like that they tried to give a frog facial hair, but it's just seaweed. Or grass.
Well, I thought that was hair.
It's not facial hair, it's just
that
hair.
was like long hair.
It could be both.
Okay.
Either
sure.
way, it isn't hair, so it could be trying to be both.
Does this creature have alt arts?
Yes,
Is that a
two
thing?
It
of
seems
them.
like it has 2 of them.
Oh wow, that's really cool.
Oh, that's lovely.
I really like this one.
And this is one of those cases where it's very clear they had some common reference and like this is
Yeah.
what this character looks like.
Yeah.
Do this character.
Yeah.
Whereas I mean I guess that's true of Helga too, but she was a little more differentiated.
Yeah.
This is like 2 takes of the same
Yeah.
thing.
Also, it does also, leading into that, it feels like one of those times where they knew what colors the card would be even before like they had an idea of what the actual like mechanics were. Because when it feels like this is art that you get when you have a brief knowing that it's blue and green,
Oh yeah.
because there's so much
color
blue
palette.
and green color palette within the art.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love this alt art. And then we
do.
also have the raised foil
This
anime.
is, I didn't know they did these for this set.
That's really cool.
I'm in love with it.
This one is hard for me to mentally parse. Like I have to seek out. Oh, there's the frog face in this.
Yes, and I also get that too.
Yeah.
Is
Pretty cool.
do they have like a big anime style bow coming out the back of them?
I think that's the same like leaves that are in the other two.
Oh, I see.
It's like a cape or giant hat or something.
I think
it
the
looks like just a-
original though is the funniest.
A little bit.
It is. It feels a little bit like
It's the most.
this character thinks they're good at what they do,
Yeah.
but are they?
They think they're expert.
Oh,
Yeah. But the
I
other
just-
two look truly competent.
I just got it. Their cape is a bunch of dead lily pads.
Oh, you're right. It's like 3 lily pads.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
That's cool.
In the anime art, it looks like a big like shrine maiden bow
Uh-huh.
that
It
some
does.
characters have tied off the back of the like either like at the back of their hair or like at the back of their robe.
Yeah.
That's just like comically large. I'm understanding more and more what you said earlier. Just with each pass I give this art, I'm finding more and more.
Yeah.
It's very good. I love it a lot. It feels like it might be muddying the frogginess
Yeah.
of the art.
I wonder if they take into account this isn't the primary depiction of this. This is a bonus shot.
Oh, almost
because
certainly.
that like this is much better as a supplemental image. This is
Yes.
when we already have the and really all 3 are the same picture, just by
Yeah.
different artists. Huh? Yeah, that's really cool. I love the non-anime alt art for this one.
Yeah,
That's my
that
favorite
one's
of these
Yeah.
3. But they're all well. The original's just funny, and the other 2 are cool.
Definitely. Like the original, I think both alt arts make Clement seem a lot more confident than they might
Yes.
be. And then you remember they're called the Worrywart,
Yeah.
and they're a frog, which in the world of Bloomburrow may indeed be stereotyping. We don't know what kind of credence the myth of frogs giving you warts has in their world, so I'm not going to think any deeper into that.
That spelling of wart is a different concept
Got
entirely
it.
anyway.
Got it. Then you can just remember that they're called the Worrywart, and that's hilarious.
Yes.
Because the original art makes them look like maybe a
Very
little,
concerned.
very
They look
concerned.
concerned, like, just what a goober.
Yeah,
you know?
I like it. Yeah, and I imagine, speaking canonically, this can go in any of these other Frog Commander decks because it's a mana dork too.
It is a necessity, I would say.
And if your commander gets imprisoned in the moon, like some people like to do to commanders, then you can bounce your commander. Maybe. Yeah.
We're looking at you. There's nothing behind you.
I know you are.
But the one thing I will say is that Clement fits in nicely, not just in any frog deck, but with any of the frog commanders that we mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Any of them can use Clement because they all have Simic in it. So it would be like, I wouldn't necessarily say a necessity, but if you're looking to fill out a commander deck, the easiest addition.
Yeah.
Because it just works so well.
Well, another thing I just noticed is that the mana dork part specifies frogs.
Yes.
The other part could be any creatures. It doesn't say. So, like, you could even go in a different direction with this if you didn't want to do frogs typal and
Correct.
just take advantage of creatures with cool ETBs and chain some interesting things there. So
Absolutely.
that's kind of neat.
Is Bellowing Crier good enough to fit into a commander deck that's just frog based, because it's not card draw, but it lets you filter through and find what you need.
I would say maybe.
Yeah.
It's 2 for a 2/1, so I would argue it. I would look at what other card draw I have in the deck beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
The only like frog typal like experience I have is with Grolnok the Omnivore.
Yeah.
I haven't started working on my Glarb deck, but it will be an eventuality.
Yeah.
And I would put it in Grolnok because the card draw is dependent on a permanent.
Mm-hmm.
And Grolnok cares a lot more about permanents than instances or sorceries.
Fair point. Yeah.
A Grolnok deck is not going to get a lot of mileage out of instant and sorcery cards just because you're going to be milling so much. So I would honestly probably put Bellowing Crier in Grolnok.
Yeah.
But any other frog deck, maybe I would hesitate. One thing for certain, definitely put Clifftop Lookout in there.
Oh yeah?
Yes, because that's a frog that ramps into the next land card in your deck, and it has reach.
And if you do end up with some sub theme about all the bouncing, then you just rebuy that a bunch of times.
Yes.
But I would like to admire the art of Bellowing Crier, because that's just look at how big that is.
One thing I didn't mention about frogs that hasn't really been portrayed in any Magic the Gathering cards until Bloomburrow is that when they want to be, they are absolutely loud.
Yes.
They are louder than anything you can conceive
I've seen that
of.
little rain frog video, the viral video of the little guy. It's like, ee!
Yeah.
You know
yeah. And there's a lot of noisy frogs in the art for this set.
Can I make a graphic of the Bellowing Crier, but like we're tossing some candy or something in his mouth, just like different things he
Is
could
that
be
the
eating?
thumbnail?
I think it is.
Yeah.
That's
Cool.
good.
I like it.
That's good.
Just give him some cheesecake, potato. I don't know.
Dour Port Mage, more card advantage.
Value on value on value with Dour Port
Yeah.
Mage. Just absolutely. I remember you mentioned it at some point, but it's also like part of a combo that lets you just draw into whatever you want. And again, with Clement, works perfectly because Clement bounces things, and whenever you bounce something, you draw a card. And Dour Port Mage has built-in bounce for 2 mana and a tap, which is just it's so good. It's so good. And that's only considering, if something does get bounced. It could be exiled. Someone could just say that they don't like your things and either like Swords, Path, or what have you, board wipe.
Yeah.
And you'd be able to benefit from that.
This is very niche, but does phasing count as leaving the battlefield?
No.
No. Okay.
No. We have a friend named Andrew who built an entire deck around not Send Triplets. No.
Is it the Moho 3 one?
Moho 3?
Yeah, Modern Horizons 3.
No. Okay, it may have been Send Triplets. But the entire point of that deck was to have ETB triggers, and he had a lot of cards that phased in and out. And when I told him that that's not how that worked, he looked at me like I had told him that.
You squished Helga?
Yes.
And now you're calling him out in public on the YouTubes.
He won't see this.
Joke's on you, buddy. He sure will.
Anyway.
Shout out to Andrew.
We love you.
We do.
Come down here and fight me.
Yeah.
You won't.
I'll just get him to Texas. That's worth it.
You might.
I feel like Magic has used all of the easy titles for cards long ago because there are so many cards. And this is fun that they used Dour.
Yeah.
And that gave them an opportunity to draw a Grumpy Frog.
Yes. He looks so stern and
He does.
It is a lot of just like default frog face being a deep set frown.
Yeah.
Because they have to open their mouth so big for
resting frog face.
Yeah.
He's not actually Dour. Everyone just thinks so.
That's just his face.
He just looks like he can't care.
The Lily Splash Mentor though is kind of smug looking. He's like,
He does. does.
Yeah.
He makes that noise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, another bounce card.
Yep. Yep. And that's just reusable bounce. That's a powerhouse in limited. And Dream Do Entrancer is one of the top like 3 cards in limited right now. And I am in the middle of a draft where I have 2 of them. It's sick. I'm
That's
5-0,
absurd.
so let's see if I
That's
can
so
screw that up
exciting.
and go 5-3. But
Yeah.
we'll see.
That's so exciting.
absurd.
But it's the Hypnotoad, right?
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
kind of surprised they didn't go with more of a direct visual reference because
Well, I think they already did that with the Psychic Frog last set.
you're right.
Yeah.
I kind of used it. Fair enough.
Also, the thing I'm realizing is that if you do use his ability specifically on your creature and you just bounce it,
Yeah.
that's the perfect scenario.
Yeah, it is. You can use it on himself and then bounce him.
I hadn't realized that.
Yeah, it is full of possibilities.
Yeah.
It's great.
One thing I do love is that most frogs also have reach because they got that long tongue. So you just wouldn't have to worry about flyers. And I don't think there is a 1 CMC green very old enchantment called Frog Tongue, which just gives the enchanted gives the enchanted
Phil
creature
Foglio
reach.
art.
Yeah. It's in Grolnok.
Yeah, okay. Pawn Prophet has the most different face. And it looks like a lizard face instead of a frog face to me.
He does a little
That looks
bit.
like a salamander.
Yeah, maybe that's it.
I like that the Long River Lurker just has a knife in his mouth.
Yeah. That's probably the most like actual frog typal
Yeah.
card here because it actually does something to all your frogs.
Yeah.
Hardly any of these none of the commanders do, right? So
Yeah, I don't think so.
Only Clement.
yeah.
It gives all your. It
Oh,
makes
you're
all
right,
your
you're
frogs
right.
That's true. He
Mana
makes
Dork.
them into mana dorks.
Yeah.
But that is great.
Who else is worth mentioning? I like the friendly face in the Sky Skipper duo.
Yeah.
It's just what is in their hands? The bird has a telescope.
Is it
What does-
It looks like something with a. Is it a bottle? With
It looks like a
cap
message
or
of some
something?
kind.
I don't know. It looks like it has a cap.
Yes, it's definitely that. Let's move on. Anyway.
I like the sticky tongue sentinel.
Oh, yeah, there's
Yeah.
the reach tongue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Frogs have reach because they have that long tongue, and nowhere else is that more obvious than right here.
Yes, there it is.
Almost. Does Sticky Tongue Sentinel have an alt art?
No.
I imagine if it did, they might with how kind of like maybe a little bordering on trippy those other alt arts were.
Yeah.
I feel like the alt art here might be bordering on like an Uzumaki-esque frog tongue.
I
Like-
love it.
Got that spiral.
A frog with a tongue so long and spirally that it induces hypnosis.
Yeah.
But here,
Oh, I just had a really horrific thought. I should tell y'all later.
delightful.
You can't do that to the people watching.
They can. Actually.
Can I say this and then you can edit it
If
if, it's
it
too disgusting?
legitimately,
Okay.
yes.
So
I think it's funnier
jumping
if you
off of
just don't.
Uzumaki.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really horrific elements. People ending up in situations they don't really want to be in. So I'm imagining right now that like he doesn't want his tongue to be turning into a spiral, and it's slowly going all the way through his body. Like the
Oh,
organs are being
Jesus.
twisted. Like eventually his whole body is just going to be twisted like a wrung out towel.
There are some thoughts you should keep inside.
You said the people needed to know. You can edit this if
That
it's
was
too
Derek.
disgusting.
That was Derek.
Welcome back to everyone who skipped ahead the number of seconds I recommended.
And you're better off for it.
That's debatable.
No one's gonna skip it, are they?
No.
Some of them may regret it.
Nope.
I like how Sunshower Druid just looks small.
It does. It looks very small.
It's a 1-drop, and somehow that's really conveyed.
Yeah, and it's a 0/2, which like that makes some sense. So like it's
Yeah.
a small creature. It doesn't
Yeah.
have attack power.
I do think it's actually it looks very good, and I think it's more indicative of a pattern in a lot of the Bloomburrow art.
Uh-huh.
Because sometimes you do get confused by like, oh, these are just magic cards with very small pieces of art, but they are almost all depicting very diminutive, minuscule creatures. And like in some of them, like you're looking at warriors that are fighting against the natural powers of nature, but in this one it's just like, no, this is a frog on a tree branch just basking in the sun, and there are water droplets in the art that are as big as its head.
Oh, you're right. The lighting on that one's really beautiful too.
It's very I love the composure of it.
Yeah, it manages to be like there's a big cool spell happening,
Yeah.
but also this is small. That's a neat balance.
It feels like the spell that this druid is invoking is less of its own manifestation and more just like willing the powers of nature to follow a specific command.
Yeah,
And
one
I
of the
love
things
that.
that I noticed as we're looking through all these frog cards, and we had kind of talked about this in an earlier video, where we talked about some of those calamity beasts and kind of setting the bar for like what kind of, you know, we have these little mice creatures, we have, you know, these small animals that are fighting like these kind of large scary things, and like where the dividing lines were in terms of like what is big and scary in a world like this.
Yeah.
And I really like how a lot of these depictions show foliage and trees and different things like that we have a real world frame of reference for.
Yeah.
So, because our first thought is not generally like, oh, that must be a gigantic tree. That gives us more, you know, it gives us more of a frame of like, oh, this is a very small frog.
Yeah.
This, you know, even the Splash Slasher, like if we pull him up, there's these visible plants behind it that kind of give you a sense of scale, and that even though this guy is kind of intimidating, I mean, he messed us up in pre-release, but, you know, it still kind of gives you a sense of scale that, like, this is not a 6-foot frog.
Yeah.
Like, this is probably, like, an average-sized frog.
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool, the way that they depicted that in these.
You know what I'm realizing now that you pointed it out with Clement? There are lily pad hats everywhere.
Oh,
Sunshower
there are.
Druid, Waterspout Warden, Tree Guard duo.
I hadn't noticed that until
I
just
thought
now.
they were kind of looked like conquistador helmets or something.
No, they're
Yeah.
lily
I hadn't-
pads.
No,
That's
yeah.
cool. I hadn't noticed that either.
That's so cool.
And then, you know what 3-tree scribe looks to me? It looks dour.
He does look kind of dour.
He does. He looks grumpy.
Yeah, but dour tree scribe just doesn't.
It doesn't
Well,
have
right.
the same
No.
ring to it.
I love frogs.
Yeah.
I love them so much, and I'm so happy I get to play with more. Fair comparison, a cat, you can bowl a cat and it'll be fine.
You can
This is-
what?
You can bowl a cat
You
and it
can
would be
bowl
fine.
a cat? What do you mean?
You could